So let me give an introduction. Give ourselves an introduction. I'm Neil. I'm an editor from Blockhead. I represent Malaysia. I run the operations down there. And today we've got some other projects all around the world. We've got Banner from Serenity. Serenity fractionalizes Magic the Gathering cards. We've got Hugh Cole. Hugh runs Digital Threads. Digital Threads is a company that merchandises IPs. We've got Manoj. Manoj runs a layer 1 blockchain. And we've got Sean Gardner from Emanate. He runs an NFT music marketplace where users essentially are able to mint their own NFTs. All right, so a quick start for everyone. So ultimately, right, Web3 is all about money, money, money. And there isn't so much about applications, but how do companies embrace Web3 technology and pivot to a blockchain business? Is it even worth their while? And so today we've got a panel here who's going to tell us how they've managed to find out different new efficiencies and avenues for their business model. All right, so good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, so what I want to get at here, right, is what is Web3 to you guys? And why is it important for individuals and businesses to understand the so-called next iteration of the internet? Maybe we could start with Ben, and then work our way towards Sean.
Hi. So to kind of answer Neil's question in short, part of what we do in my retail operation as well as in the business element is that we do a lot of authentication, a lot of certification of the things that we end up selling in the inventory. And I think blockchain, to me, or Web3, exists as a kind of Archimedean fulcrum from which more trading, more financial products, other things, other derivations from what we sell can be direct, can be manufactured, can be produced. And so being able to back that up in a blockchain without having to go through, archaic methods of like provenance, finding the source, having like a reference list or like, oh, I bought from this person, they have so many transactions on the marketplace. All of those things lend a lot to what we do, and give also the customers and our clients a lot of peace of mind when it comes to purchasing to trading.
Okay. I think for myself, Web3. I think first up, a little bit of background. Very much a collector at heart. Started off with physical collectibles, and I think what really made sense to me was obviously NFTs. The reason I really look up to like Web3 and what it actually offers, I think number one, it ties back a lot to my background, which is actually streetwear. I think streetwear itself, when you speak about the components of what comprises of streetwear, number one, it's like, the whole exclusivity of it. Scarcity as well. But I think most importantly, it's always community. So I think, and I think it's been amazing, right? Obviously, like during the pandemic itself, a lot of us were cooped up in our houses and whatnot. And but NFTs are borderless. And obviously running, originally a Web2 business, a lot of that is somewhat defined by borders, where we market to who we speak to. But obviously Web3 is global. You're able to really reach global audiences. And I think lastly as well would be the way that you market to people is always changing. And I draw a lot of inspiration myself when I look at my nieces itself. They're 2 10-year-old kids, and the way that they actually communicate with their friends, it's all on these type of metaverse type platforms, whether it be Roblox or whatnot. And that is obviously how they've been connecting and making friends and playing games and spending their time. So I think as a brand, it really makes sense. How do we really stay dead right center to be able to speak to this new generation?
That's a nice one. So from a layer one perspective, we feel that Web3, apart from going to be a game changer and other stuff, like the usual stuff, but somewhere we felt it's got to do really with some economic purpose. It has to bring out some real economic purpose, not just for fun. Most of us got into Web3 basically because of our interest to probably try out Bitcoin and all those things, the initial stages. But then, from a tech perspective, we went into Web3 mainly to ensure that tech can be more suitable for someone who is as layman as possible, a non-tech guy as possible, and then can just jump into something that's evolving or going to evolve in the future, and then make good of their economic intentions that they would like to achieve in it. So that's where we started embarking on this journey of creating a different protocol, different consensus mechanism, and then how we can make it more useful. It was when I started into the blockchain industry way back in 2010, I was typically spending like 10 minutes in Google to read what this blockchain is all about, right? So that's how I think most of us started to do it as well. But as and when I started to understand how these things can connect to the real business, it made a lot of sense. And then, when we looked around to see a right tech that can support the real business intent, somehow we felt the tech that was available at the time, the Ethereum ones, the Bitcoin ones and other stuff, were not really fulfilling certain crucial criteria for us. For example, the tech was not green, it was not energy conservative. From an enterprise background, I'm typically a fund management guy, a typical finance guy. But then to come from that angle, we look at a lot of parameters to satisfy ourselves before we drop in a dollar. So from that angle, we felt the tech has to be redone. So we worked on doing a complete revamp of the whole stuff, and then we came up with our own research, patents, and all those things. Probably the only company in the blockchain world which has done it till now. So from that angle, we feel Web3 is not just going to be someone random coming into earning for some quick bucks on the crypto coins and other stuff, but it's got real purpose for everyone who is having their life bet on this.
I think for me, like you opened and said it's money, right? And I think I kind of disagree with that to an extent. It's like money is just a vehicle through which we achieve freedom, and Web3 can offer people freedom in ways outside of just the financial aspect. So whether it's creative freedom as a designer or a musician, or whether it is that financial freedom aspect of somebody who works a 9-to-5 job, but is able to get involved in some other things through the Web3 world with access to this global kind of market and different assets and things that they can get involved in. And I think that the reason that it's important for businesses, which was part of the question as well, is that up until now, it's always been a one-way kind of transaction between businesses and consumers, where we just buy stuff and we get a receipt and we use it and we eat it or we throw it out, or you know what I mean? It kind of it's just this one-way, real one-way relationship. And now I think what brands are realizing, those that are stepping into the space, is that they can actually have a two-way relationship with their customers beyond just user-generated content and all of that stuff that the Web 2.0 world brought along. Now customers can actually own a little bit of the brand, whether it's a digital asset or a wearable or something else. So there's more of a kind of two-way nature, and that inherently builds a community. And so, I think for me personally and for brands moving into the space, it's about freedom and inclusiveness and community.
Yeah, I really like the answers given by everyone. At the end of the day, it's all about how do we bring how do we bring people closer to true tech from a community? How do we bring better connections? And how can we build infrastructure and at the end of the day become more inclusive to everybody? So for some of you guys who have entered the room, basically what we have here is what happens if a card shop, a merch store, a blockchain, and a music marketplace walk into a room, and you have us. All right, so for this next question here is for Manoj. From an infrastructural tech point, Some believe that Web3 will democratize the global economy and at some point reduce our reliance on big companies and intermediaries. What does this mean for smaller businesses, and how should they prepare for Web3?
Very pertinent question. So this is one of the reasons why we started our research back in 2017 as to how the existing blockchain tech is working today. So for example, we all have seen multiple developments that has happened on the Ethereum platform, on the other platforms that are coming up. But if you look at the economy or the economics of how they have done this, they've got this whole mining validator economy on one side and the developer economy or the user economy on the other side. And then there is obviously an economic purpose between both of them by gas fees and all those things that's contributing towards the revenue for those blockchains. This was creating, and the debate that's happening, especially after the POS merge of Ethereum, is that how centralized it has become. So Web3, the entities which are the behemoths in Web3 are actually based on the principles of Web2, which is centralization. So Bitcoin's servers or the nodes, Ethereum's nodes are all centralized today, and that's the case with all the other blockchains as well. How do you democratize this, which is the true purpose of Web3, was the research that we started working back in 2017. So we always felt that if you're going to give someone an extra task to do this, to jump into a new tech, they have to go towards, or probably they have to take steps backward rather than forward. You need to have an infrastructure, you need to actually have a wallet, you need to have the knowledge of how to do mining, what to do for that mining and all those things. That's where the centralization comes in. So what if you can make the tech so lean? What if you can make the tech so usable and more friendly in terms of being lean and simple to use? As much as you're using your iPhone today or your Samsung phones today, if you can use your laptop, which you're using for your day-to-day operations, to convert them as a live node, what it can throw up in terms of decentralization. Now that's what Rubix has achieved by our tech. So our entire architecture moved towards the very premise of decentralizing what's becoming more towards a centralized economy, even in Web3. So today you can run a Rubix node with your laptop, doing your front-end work, whatever you're doing, and Rubix will be running on the back end, contributing on the main pool in terms of the validation economy. So this is how we wanted to bring it in. And also, if you're going to leave out the developer economy to the mining or the validator economy, it's going to be more polarized. So we wanted to make the developer economy and the miner or the validator economy together. So that's where we blended the whole thing. So the developers in our chain get 80% of the tokens or the credits accruing to them. So you come into the chain, you start earning in the chain rather than you start spending in the chain. So we felt these are the differences that one can give to a true small business entrepreneurs. They come into the blockchain industry. First of all, most of us feel that small businesses need not come into blockchain right now. It will change over the course of time. But at least if you can provide them an avenue where you can tell them that, look, you're spending everywhere, but you're a small business, we are giving you an avenue to earn by participating in this. That changes the whole mindset.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong answer, right? What you've explained basically allows people more accessible ways to get to tech, and it really just changes up the whole economy for people to come in. My next question is actually for Ben, because coming on from the layer one, they've managed to provide a platform for people to have like a more inclusive kind of a community. And this has allowed some of the tech for what you do, which is essentially fractionalizing Magic the Gathering cards. And I think that's really interesting. For some of us here, we've grown up with card games, but we've never ever had a chance to sell it because, damn, these cards are just expensive. So maybe you could walk us through how you've been using this tech.
I think when you mentioned democratization, I thought of it completely differently from Manoj, which is why he does what he does, and I sell cardboard. But yeah, I think that the tech is really important in terms of connecting both users, people, consumers like yourselves, collectors, who don't know that another person is looking to buy and looking to sell. But more importantly, I think on the credit front, it closes that bid-ask spread. Right. This exists in a lot of industries because the intermediary is somebody that's trustworthy, whose name is so large that you can only go to them to buy or to sell or to move your product. Right. I don't know if it's overstepping by comparing it to music or to streetwear or anything like that, but there are these monolithic kind of institutions that make their peace by doing this. And so I think the beauty of what we're trying to do with Serenity and enabled by Rubik's is that we get to fully put this into the hands of the consumer and say, look, you guys do it. We're just going to be your clearinghouse, your Archimedean kind of point, your fulcrum for you to do all this trading. And this what we're trying to do.
Would you mind giving us a use case of, let's say, one of the rarest cards that you sold?
Okay, yeah. So we in 2017 we were part of a transaction, multi-party transaction for $600,000 US, about 800,000 Singapore dollars today. And the reason why there were multiple
Wait,
parties.
sorry, $800,000?
Yeah.
Single card.
For a single card?
I mean, yeah. Logan Paul wears that stuff around his neck all the time, so no big deal, right? So, but yeah, the reason why it was a multi-party transaction is because the buyer needed someone on his side who could bet for the guy he was buying from, and the guy he was selling wanted to make sure. So, in essence, that use case would go away if you had this over-trusted chain, the technology behind it, as well as an entity that was willing to say, look, we're gonna take on this obligation of certifying all this stuff for you, and in exchange for that, you just use our platform, you just go through our system, and you get to meet users, like-minded individuals. You get to explore the metaverse in that way, in whatever way you choose.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, you've got me thinking, right? $800,000 for a card. That is some serious money, right? So just very quickly, what is the market cap for the Magic the Gathering industry like?
I did the numbers in 2018 for some people, and I haven't updated it for 4 years because it sounds cooler that way. In 2018, before COVID, it was 1.5 B, and there's some data behind that, but there aren't the same analytics that you have in traditional industries, right? So this is really just advanced napkin math. But I'd say that if anything, it's grown, as we've seen in luxury goods and collectibles over the past 4 years.
That is pretty cool. Like, I would never expect a $1.5 billion industry to be Magic the Gathering, and I guess that's a great segue to the next one for Sean and Hugh actually. So this one here is about in a more front-facing, more retail-focused industries. Like, how have you used blockchain to amplify or improve the user experience for both your users? Do you use it for DeFi, for automation, for different generations of income? How do you approach that?
For us, like, we've been building since 2017. So going back that far, blockchain wasn't necessarily that usable. So we set things up in the beginning for our users to be able to onboard just with an email address and a password, using kind of a ghost account that looks after their transactions, and then they can eventually take that on if they want. So there's a smooth onboarding process for them, and that sort of thing is still popular today. I think not necessarily down the path of UX, but the sorts of things that have been possible on our platform is giving people around the world who make music access to the global streaming industry without them needing to have any banking infrastructure. So we have a lot of people that are under 18 that make music, that want to be able to monetize their songs, but they don't want to borrow their parents' credit card in order to pay for distribution services or that sort of thing. People in Nigeria that don't have bank accounts that want to get their music out there, that are more than happy to get paid in crypto and earn crypto for their streams or the sale of their NFTs. So there's some nice elements of democratization there. We make it as usable as possible, with the email address and password kind of onboarding, but at the end of the day, like, you really do need to get your hands into a crypto wallet if you're going to be handling Web3 assets, and that's a journey that people need to kind of take on their own. That's becoming easier and easier.
I think for us, for digital trades itself, I think similar to Sean as well, is obviously, you spoke about the proof of ownership. So I don't think, I ever introduced like what exactly digital trades is. But digital trades is a one-stop solution, A to Z, that onboards like Web3 brands that want to move into physical merchandise. So say for example, if you're an NFT project, I think the natural progression for a lot of projects out there is to get an additional revenue stream from physicals. So we actually provide that solution. That's obviously, the business that we've been doing for 13 years is a Web2 business, and we kind of thought, hey, there is some sort of opportunity in this space. And the way that we've actually been utilizing, or will be utilizing, blockchain technology, a lot of it is actually proof of ownership. So say for example, we speak about NFTs, you have bought this, whatever, $100,000 NFT, and obviously you want to be able to wrap it, through whether it be clothes that you make or any of the other type of physicals that we offer. A lot of it ties back to the authentication that you are the true owner, and obviously blockchain can actually do that. So as easy as connecting your wallet, verifying that you have it, and yeah, we'll make it for you. So I think that's just one easy, quick way, is integrating blockchain into our business.
Yeah, I kind of like the applications of blockchain from everyone. Yeah. It's there is a lot of good behind it, and in the tech implied into businesses is certainly very exciting. However, for people from Web2 coming into Web3, there is this question of, is Web3 even necessary? Is it an overkill for businesses? Are we unnecessarily complicating our businesses by adding a blockchain-based technology within our operations? So this is a big question. It's a big question here. So I would like to challenge everyone on the panel to explain this answer to me like a 5. So perhaps Sean, we can start with you.
So I don't think Web3 is necessary for all businesses right now. Definitely not. Like there's some whose customers are just absolutely not going to use a wallet, or are not going to engage with digital assets in any way whatsoever. I think eventually, most businesses are going to have some kind of blockchain element to their digital infrastructure, whether they know it or not. But what was the first part of the question? Sorry.
Are we unnecessarily complicating?
Yeah, I don't believe that it actually does unnecessarily complicate things. Everyone's kind of seen that graphic where it's like Web 1 is email address and password, Web 2 is single sign-on, and there's like sign-on with Google, Facebook, Twitter, whatever else, and Web 3 is just connect wallet. And I think that, once you wrap your head around the basics of it, it is much more simple. As someone that's been in crypto for more than 5 years, I would much rather send someone some crypto than log into a banking application, put in their bank details, send them a certain amount of money. I actually trust sending crypto to someone more than sending them through the banking system, and I've lost more money trying to pay people through wire transfers than I have, through wallet addresses and things like that. So on a panel yesterday, someone quite rightly pointed out that opening a bank account is difficult, right? It's way more difficult to go and open a bank account than it is to get set up with a Web3 wallet. If I got 2 people off the street right now, one of them with no bank account and one of them who'd never set up MetaMask, I would guarantee that they would be up and running with MetaMask before they would have a bank account set up. So it's not more difficult, there's just a little bit of a barrier that needs to be overcome in terms of perception, and a little bit of negative perception that needs to be overcome in kind of mainstream media, mainstream society before those perceptions are whittled down. So yeah, I think there's some projects and some businesses maybe that are overcomplicating things, but in essence, it makes things easier and will make things simpler in the long run.
So the best part about doing what I do and not being involved in the actual industry is that I don't know all the overcomplicated stuff, and I leave that to people like Manoj. And the way I would describe Web3 for us versus Web2 is we're just going to be Carousel, a peer-to-peer marketplace for Magic Gathering cards, without having to worry about like where you guys gonna meet up, whether or not this guy's gonna scam you, whether or not he's gonna pay you right, all that kind of stuff, and whether or not the product you're buying is legitimate. Right, and the extension of that is just the use of blockchain technology to enable that. Right? We currently have our e-com platform. Before we had an e-com platform, we were selling a lot of our brick and mortar. So that's just a natural evolution from here, right? We go from Web 0, Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, and that being more than that.
I think a lot of people speak about Web3, but I think definitely we shouldn't be complicating things. I think there are going to be a lot of businesses out there who probably be Web 2.1, Web 2.5, right? And I think the whole idea, what blockchain is actually able to provide, or this technology, it is a solution to certain problems. So it doesn't need to address the entire business, all different business aspects of it. But I think, like I mentioned, like for example, digital trade itself, when it comes to the authentication in terms of knowledge, blockchain is able to solve that. For our streetwear brand as well, I look at it from the standpoint of like our loyalty program. How are we able to onboard our customers and have their profile, which is always going to be in the blockchain, and we know everything about that, the things that they like, and maybe even gamifying the experience itself, where they own this NFT and they can collect, whether it be tokens, whatnot, and to be used in our ecosystem. So I think for issues like that, it definitely provides a solution to it, but it doesn't need to be put onto every single angle of the business. That's right.
Interesting observations. So, it took us about 20 years to move from Web 1 to Web 2's adaptability on a mass scale, right? So as recent as this example of payment apps being used in our hawker centers here in Singapore, they never did it before COVID. They never wanted to hop into any of those simple activities which can benefit them over the long term. They never wanted to jump into those things as recent as COVID, right? So that's like 2020, 2021. So there's always this gap between what an economic purpose any solution is going to provide to you versus how effectively it can provide to you. So you can always project that it's going to provide these things, but there are different layers of applicability of all those economic benefits. So from that perspective, I feel Web3 should not be a thrust on anyone. It should be a natural adaptation. I think it's going to have a much shorter phase in terms of adaptation. Web2 took, as I mentioned, about 20-25 years, but Web3 might be probably 10 years. It could be in everyone could be having their own GID-based wallets in next 5 years. And then could be trading SGD stablecoin or using SGD stablecoin to do transactions as local as what we are doing now. We are seeing USDT and other stuff. But there are companies that have done this SGD stablecoin here in Singapore, right? So from that perspective, I think economic utility is going to derive the real purpose of Web3 adaptability. From our perspective, we have seen different levels of adaptability. I've seen a complicated enterprise like Microsoft. We partnered with Microsoft on the cybersecurity space. Microsoft uses one of our algorithms for authenticating all our logins into Microsoft Azure Cloud. So that's the highest level of adaptability that I've seen in terms of cybersecurity and other stuff. And getting into partnership with an entity like Microsoft is unheard of in the Web3 industry.
I'm going to pause you right there, and I'm going to go straight. I'm going to come back with another question to you, right? Is that given a lot of what you're selling as a blockchain is all about dreams, right? Essentially, because a lot of it is unproven. So, how do you define Web3 to these companies?
Well, I would say Web3 is more usability. It's the ease of jumping into a futuristic technology, in case if that's what they would like to hear. Otherwise, if they simply would like to hear that they can earn more, jumping into Web3, that's the answer that I should give. I won't go and complicate things with anyone if it's not necessary. So with Microsoft, my explanation would be, oh, this is going to sophisticate your entire mechanism, and then we're going to go into quantum computing, proof, architecture and all those things. But with a mom and pop shop, I'll come back and tell them that, look, you use these apps that are running in Web3, probably you'll have passive income coming up to you. That's simply the explanation that I would go and do. I will not go and educate them on.
So software guys and digital marketers, that's how you approach your clients next. So he's just giving you the answer. Okay, so this goes for everyone. We're in our last 10 minutes. So let's try to wrap it up really quickly with, I'm gonna load everyone with this question here. It's like, what are your predictions for Web3 in one sentence? Now you don't have to answer it right now. Before we get there, very quickly, I want to ask each and every one of you, given that you're already blockchain businesses, how do you make money?
We're a blockchain business, so we're not making money. No, but I think that's obviously the outcome of user acquisition is one of the greatest things that businesses are paying for today. But for what we do, it's simply monetizing the expertise and the certification experience, as well as the network or buyers and sellers that we have. And turning that into something that's credible and that can be actually tracked, and there's a legend that shows you all of this stuff, instead of like making your finger and putting it in the air and saying, my company's worth X. The idea is to be able to say, hey, these are all the transactions that we run through our platform. And if we were to monetize it, this is how much it would be worth, and this is how our expertise is. And alongside that, it's also to say that while it may not be necessary blockchain right now, I think it's inevitable. It's something that if you don't follow it, if you don't evolve, you get left behind. And yeah, so that's how I would monetize it, which is to eventually monetize it.
So for us at Digital Threads, first up is, I mentioned that we're a solution A to Z providing merchandise, right? But one of the biggest USPs of Digital Threads itself is actually the money upfront. So in terms of the platform, it's all actually on a pre-order basis. What that allows is that, for projects or for Web3 brands to create that merchandise and publish it online, and to list it online and to sell. We obviously, collect the money upfront, which obviously there is a cut on top of the manufacturing cost that we do incur. But the rest of it is then given back to the project in terms of their own revenue. So that's one way that we go out and make money, make the business somewhat sustainable. And the other part as well is that that's more from like a B2B standpoint, and then we've got the B2C side where it's pretty much just collectors coming on board, wanting to print the NFT or make it into a certain product, and that one they just pay up front. So a little bit more traditional in terms of the way we go.
And I like keeping it simple.
So as a kind of Web3 based music business, historically we've made revenue through selling NFTs, selling tokens, subscription fees on our applications, and consulting fees. And moving forward, we're probably going to have more sort of transactional based things like NFT trading, increased NFT sales, and then there's like active treasury management and that sort of thing as well. With such volatility in the market, you can easily make money actively managing your treasury.
So we are layer one. So we don't make money that easily. We have to splash a lot of money to be honest. But I think it's a long-term play for us. You can look at Bitcoin, you can look at Ethereum. They basically started from zero and then they moved up their layer. So that's how every layer one has to go up. We are no different from that, but we also have provided this unique concept of having zero gas fee on our platform. So anyone who uses Rubix for developing their Web3 apps need not pay any gas fees for Rubix at all. So We make money purely from service integrations and our investments that can eventually, or we hope them to grow eventually much bigger and then return us the money. Apart from this, we also have our tokens, which are basically hard cap tokens. So more and more developer economy and our ecosystem grows up, the tokens valuation goes up, and that's our long-term perspective on making money.
Nice. So we've got traditional to very complex. Yeah, I think thank you for your answers on how to make money. Yeah. So anyone's coming into blockchain, you got the blueprint right here. So going back to that last question, predictions. Let's start with Ben and then we work our way up.
I actually want to talk to Manoj about what he's saying, and I think I would think about layer one completely differently, which is to say, if you had a chance today, philosophically speaking, to invent a new language that people would use, and how much money would you pay for that? How much would you put into it so that people could, instead of speaking English or alongside speaking English, speak Rubik's? Right? And I think to me, that seems to be the value proposition for layer one. And I would love to hear his thoughts on language and stuff like that. But to answer your question, sum up future of blockchain, I think it's inevitable, not necessary, but inevitable.
I think what we see here today is that it's definitely going to evolve, right? I mean, over the past 1 year, we've seen so many things come into play. So much new tech, so many new players as well. So much more money being thrown into the space, and therefore, it's going to constantly evolve. But I think similar, to what you said as well, it is really the future. I mean, that's what I personally believe. But whether it's used this way or how we see it right now, I think that will change.
We are pretty optimistic. That's why we are layer one. So from our perspective, it's going to be a full-blown usage of Web3 into every aspect of life going forward. So that's our prediction, and that's why we've invested so much in this.
I think that the interesting thing that a lot of people don't realize is that this technology is being developed in front of us and everybody's participating in it. If you look back, like the first internet transactions happened in 1969, but we didn't start actually using the internet, most of us, until about the year 2000. If I talk about the music industry, the MP3 was invented in 1991, but we didn't start downloading MP3s until like the early 2000s. And so, Bitcoin's been around 10, 12 years, Ethereum's been around 7 years, NFTs have only been talked about for about 2 or 3 years on the most part. But tech is cool now. It doesn't just happen in some small office, out the back of someone's house or whatever. People participate in it. People want to be first. People want to move faster than everyone else. There's opportunity to earn money. And I think that's why we're at this point where some people are scared of it, some people are against it, other people are massively for it, because it's being developed right in front of us. And I wholeheartedly agree with the guys that it's going to be absolutely everywhere. You just might not know that you're using it all the time. It's just going to be a pervasive technology that's part of everyday life. And hopefully it makes everyday life a lot better.
And I couldn't agree more. I'm actually with our resident. Blockchain is the future. It's here to stay. It's inevitable. And with that, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to Ben, you, Anil,